Welcome to another episode of Behind the Catch Fence. I'm your host, David Hoffman. Today is episode 48. We've got one of Open Wheel Racing's finest. It's Takuma Sato. He's on the show today. Now, if you watch IndyCar, you know Sato is a two-time Indianapolis 500 winner, and he's won on every type of track that the series goes to, from road courses to street courses and, of course, ovals as well. Now, on the show today, Sato discusses his upbringing in racing, how he ended up going from Formula One to IndyCar, his trials and success with the Indy 500, and much more. And with that, get ready for a jam-packed episode. So, sit back, relax, grab your favorite snack, maybe some hot wings for a little bit of extra spice in your life today, and enjoy this episode with Takuma Sato.
Hi, David. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you. Thank you. I'm good too. Yes.
What were you going to say?
Yep. Everything good.
Awesome. Yeah, I was impressed you joined as soon as it hit. Is it the zeros?
All right.
Perfect.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. I just want to talk about your career a little bit and just,
of course,
we'll go from the start to all the way up till now. So we'll get rolling. So just take me back to the beginning of when you thought to yourself, I want to be a race car driver. When was that moment for you?
Well, I think the first impact has to be back in 1987. So it's quite old memories, but for me, it was still like fresh. And I was only 10, and I know nothing about racing, actually. So my parents had no idea whatsoever for the racing once again too. But my father really loved the car, just generally speaking. So the friend of his, actually, we had the ticket for the Japanese Grand Prix for the first time in Suzuka. So that was back in 1987. So we got that ticket, and then I went to the Suzuka circuit, the first time ever for any racing circuit in my life, and I was 10, and I was just shocked. You know, the speed of the car, in fact, the acceleration is the one that got me. And I was just stood there, and I couldn't get back to the seat. It was so shocking. And so that moment, from really the nose to tail, the nose to toe, that I felt like I fall in love in the motor racing. So that was a moment. But of course, back in then, at that time, I really didn't dream anything, wanted to become race car driver, etc., etc. Just too young, just know nothing about it. But since then, it's just the memory expanding, and I was following a lot of motor racing, and particularly in the Formula One, of course. And then one day, I become start dreaming about become the race car driver. So that was the time. So really, honestly, like about, I don't know, age 12, 13 years old when I went to the junior high. That time I just seriously thinking that I wanted to become a race car driver.
What was that moment for you? I mean, as you started to get in, was it karts, I'm assuming, is what you started to get into?
Unlike excuse me, unlike a lot of race car drivers that I just simply didn't have opportunity. Once again, I just didn't know. Now, of course, as my colleagues and the lots of the race car drivers, friends, and studying karting when he was 5 and 4 years old, and etc. But the first time actually I drove karting was when I was 19, and until then I really had the bicycle is the only, for me, it was the only race car driver can express my passion and racing. So I was actually competing in the bicycle quite competitively and seriously through the high school time to the university time. But when I was 19, I was actually leading on the magazine about cars, and then they have a future of a Suzuka racing school. Talk about Suzuka racing school. So this racing school was very young. At that time, it was only second year when I was leading the magazine, and specifically made it for the driver who potentially, I don't know, become an international driver. That was basically funded Honda. So when I read it, this is it. This is the only opportunity for me to start my race career, because they had the age restriction. So you have to be under 20 years old to get into the school. So when I was 19, they have to follow to the next term, which I become a 20. So it's the last time, but it's only time. So I told my parents, just give me one shot, just give me one chance. And if I failed it, I never ask it. That's the deal. So, so then I just went to the Suzuka Racing School, which is like a tiny, small, like Formula 4 today. It's smaller than that, but it's using a very specific school car designed by Ron Tarnock in UK, and Honda Civic 1.6 liter VTEC engines and etc. So it's a proper nice Formula car, but it goes through the from spring to the winter. There was extensive program. You run 100 hours of Suzuka International Race Course to basically up your skill. And then end of it, you get the scholarship if you're appropriate. So that was it. I was aiming for the scholarship, and fortunately, I got the scholarship, and that's how I started my race career. So really, back then, I was 20 years old, know nothing about racing, but just a purely enjoying and smiling, big smile on the on the driving in Suzuka, just like I was in 10 back in Suzuka time. So
And you mentioned with you competing pretty seriously with bicycles. I never knew that. How did I guess what type of how was what was like it was like a series itself, or what was that?
yes, so initially it was a mountain bike. So that was a time just in Japan there is getting much more popular for the mountain bikes in a way, the States really it was on top of the game already. So when I entered high school, that was the first time I just got my own mountain bike, and then starting to how can I say it's going to like a pro shop, in your town, and then exposing, getting knowing about the bicycle competition. I really didn't know anything about it too, but I just love the wheels and mechanical side and all the stuff. So starting mountain bike, and then when I become second grade in the junior, the high school, I start road biking, and then enter a couple of the small hobby races, and then when I was in the third grade on high school, so I bound to know that All Japan High School Championship, and which because I entered all the how can I say just the public racing, it was just all kind of mixture age. But I really wanted to try and compete in a equal condition in a high school student and highest level. So that was a time. But then you have to register to how do I say that? So All Japan Association by school. But to do that, the school has to have the club sport in its school, which my high school it didn't have it. So it took a little bit time to launch the actual club, but my school teacher really helped me a lot, and then I built my own bicycle club team in high school, and that was my third grade. So it was a spring, and I went to the Tokyo region, country region, and eventually was the inter high school. There's All Japan High School, the bicycle race. That was basically based on track racing. So every single year, from mountain bike to road racing, track racing, I was competing, and I was doing quite seriously. So that was a good time too.
So I mean, obviously, racing, motorsports had to have had a pretty big influence on you to go away from that.
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. Obviously, riding on the bicycle doesn't really mean that you get a good skill for the driving, but obviously you get the sensation of the speed and the wheels and slip angles and all the stuff, and that most importantly, you just that you mentally you are in competition, you are imagining on racing. That was only things I could do by two wheels bicycle instead of karting. So I really wanted to start karting, I just couldn't. So that's why the bicycle was for me. It's made my fundamental structure of young days of a competition attitude.
So you eventually end up going up through the ranks, you end up making it to Formula One in 2002. Just when you got there, what stood out to you about the sport that maybe you didn't know about before, or something that caught you off guard a little bit?
I mean, I think I think it's kind of funny feeling that I was kind of ready but not ready. Um, what I mean is, so when I reached in Formula One, so basically 2002 in Jordan Grand Prix, that was exactly only 5 years after I first time basically drive karting. So it's incredibly short time. Who really didn't start racing when I was young age. So lucky experience for sure. But at the same time, I really specifically designed to the footpath in how we do it. Now, of course, you can't do it by yourself. Of course not. When you after won scholarship in Suzuka, I start racing. But then really what made me happen was a British Formula 3 back in time. So those time wasn't a Euro Formula 3. There was a very localized British Formula 3, German Formula 3, Italian Formula 3, French Formula 3, All Japan Formula 3, of course in North America too. But these Formula 3 is obviously same formula, so same basically regulation. So every championship in the countries amongst the champions become like a Marble Masters in Zandvoort, in the summer, Macau Formula 3 for the autumn. It's just the top of the game. That's it. So all the junior driver aiming for the crown of the Formula 3 championship as well as the Macau. Just like Ayrton Senna started, Mika Hakkinen, Marcus Schumacher, all those, the great legends, going through that route. So I was dreaming about that, and then I went to the UK 1998 and starting from Vauxhall Junior, which is like a small US 2000-ish, the racing, and then become Formula Opel Euro Series, British Formula 3 2000, 2001 with Kali Motorsport. And that was the time I just dominate in the racing. That's become caught attention from a lot of Formula One team owners. One of them was, of course, Eddie Jordan, who loved the young driver to bring up to the to Formula One world. So that was a special time. So then when I get to my first ever Formula One test was actually 2001 Christmas time. So 2000 Christmas time. So Eddie gave me a kind of little present, after I was starting to shine in the British Formula 3. So when I look at my gloves, the yellow gloves with a special square steering wheel, back then. And then all the pit crews and the tire warmers, and then when engine fired up, and then it's already 6,000 RPM for the idling, and which is almost the maximum RPM in the Formula 3 almost, So it's just unbelievable work. So when I pull out in the pit lane and acceleration and then the braking and downforce, it's just nothing was I could imagine. It was just beyond my imagination. I hit the brake and it stopped way too early, before the corner. So, the Formula One is just crazy. You arrived probably, I don't know, 50 to, in case like some of the 70, 80 miles per hour faster than Formula 3, but hit the brake almost exact the same, or in some cases deeper than the Formula 3. So imagine how you need to adopt all the things. That was incredible. So that was end of 2000. And then, of course, after 2001 British Formula 3 Championship, and then we won the Macau. Then, of course, I was able to sign with AD as the debut in the Formula 1 2002. So the grit when I first time in the Melbourne, that was just a special memory. We had a mechanical failure, so we couldn't finish the race. But that was just my dream. Become like a dream comes true. So I never forgot that sensation.
And you mentioned just how you were really brought up to a pretty quick. Just how long did it take for you, at least in Formula One itself, to really get acclimated, get adapted to not only just the car itself, but the competition level and everything else, to where you were able to compete for podiums and top tens and everything else?
Yeah, I don't know. Of course, I was naturally loved how drive the car on the limit. That was, I think, there was you know the, the people try the things. I love the challenge, of course, and then I think for me, nothing is impossible. For most of the stuff, of course, there is some limits. But when you really get into that and then the focus, of course, you have to be good at, some parts, but most of the people has got just unlimited potential. That's my belief. Because otherwise, when I started racing with 20, lots of people couldn't believe I will become professional race car driver. Particularly in Formula One, no way. No one really believed, apart from a few people. So those people really helped me out. Some of that the school teacher, some of that Suzuka Racing, some of that blah blah, and the parents too. But I never doubted. I believed in myself all the time. So I just basically attacking all the time, and failed so many times. But every single failed, you get a kind of bonus, like, oh, this is your weak point. If you can fix it, if you can sort it, basically you become another step. That is just a nature of the name of the sport, isn't it? So fail and fix and development. So that's the kind of things I did it in compressed under 5 years. So in terms of just the pure speed, I was really fortunate enough to get to the Formula One. But everything is a timing. Honda backed up hugely in economies and just the timing. When I won the British Formula 3 Championship, right time and right timing. And when I got the audition in the Formula One teams, and I had to beat amongst of the European drivers and etc. So everything has become one thing together. The one quick little mistakes probably won't make it, but that's the highest level of the competition. So when I loved the Formula One, I never doubted myself in terms of just pure speed, but of course you so inexperienced, and you against the best 20 drivers in the world in terms of pure speed too. So you've been shocked so many ways. But my first teammate with the Giancarlo Fisichella, and the second, obviously the Jenson Button became my teammates. But every those super fast drivers, there's a piece by piece that I was failed, but at the same time I beat my teammate too. So that's become like a confidence. And then just to put all the pieces together, then of course you are arriving on the kind of a front row grid with a side by side with Michael Schumacher, or the podium finish at the Indianapolis in the and special race in 2004, etc. That I was just lucky. I was just lucky to be there to give everything I have, and then so many people help me out and become the huge power or energy.
And obviously you competed in F1 for multiple years, multiple seasons.
Yeah.
When did you feel, or what sort of aspects were there that you thought, it was time to move on to a different challenge, which ended up being IndyCar?
Right. So that was kind of a kind of really sad situation after economy crashed 2007, and really 2008 was a tough year for all of us. And I was after Jordan, so of course went to be a Honda, and it was my second year was probably the best result in terms of just the paper. But since then, 2006, I started to join the Super Guri team, small team. It's just a fantastic team. We were 4.5 or 5 seconds away from Michael Schumacher on the pole in the first race, and then the nearest rival, we were again away about over 1.5 seconds or something, and we're being lapped after 10 laps. There was just a so tough time. But then, same team, fundamentally same car, become legitimate P10 finish at Brazil in the end of 2006. And then 2007 was such a special year that I got the Barcelona first point, and then in Canada, overtook Kimi Räikkönen, Alonso, McLaren with a small Super GUI team. That was such a special feeling. So, and then eventually 2008, on not even halfway through, just after 4 races, we are basically bankrupt. And then there was unpaid sponsorship fees and etc. So Mr. Guri had to make a decision that he had to close the team. So that was really sad. That not just you can't continue your Formula One career, but also all the boys. We're making so much special memories together. We just couldn't continue. But I didn't really, how can I say, went to the I was quite optimistic, to be honest, to going back to the Formula One world. Now, of course, on the end of the year, I start kind of three shootout with Sebastian Bourdais and Buemis for the Toro Rosso race seat. Eventually, there's so many reasons that we couldn't make it, and then after year after, Renaults and finalists, and almost back in the Formula One, but because the Russian Grand Prix is coming on board and etc. I couldn't bring the sponsorship, so that was a very difficult. I was failed. So that time, almost spending nearly 2 seasons, 1.5 seasons, not to racing, and you feel like you become the premium of the driver because you're approaching the year 30 years old and etc. So you have enough experience now, and not yet you're losing speed at that time, I thought. So it's just wasting time. And you could actually stick in a Formula One village if you wanted. You can get to the serve driver or reserve driver deal, but then it will be specific team. So you have to wait millions of the chances just to become a replacer driver. There has to be something on the regular driver, right? So the destiny is somebody's hand, not yourself. You can make a decision. So that point, I really thought, I really wanted to make it my destiny myself. So Formula One was great, all-time dream, but I've done it. And now's the time I wanted to see other world, race isn't only Formula One, and then of course what comes up on my mind was Indy 500, because I know very little about the IndyCar series, and I always fan of a huge competition and variety of the racetrack and street course, real street course, and oval, short oval, super speedway, and road course, etc. And back then in the kart series, it was a screaming 16,000 RPM and so many engine manufacturers, and it just was fantastic racing. I knew it. But Indy 500 is the one that struck me a lot because actually before 10 years old, so I was 6 or 7 years old, I was sitting in front of TV, which back then there was not even remote control. It was actually dial channel tuner. And I remember there was cars passing in high speed corners. Wasn't really remember the oval, but for sure there was no turn right. There was always turn left. So that must be Indy 500. So before I went to Suzuka year of 10, 4 years before, I was watching on TV and I was Indy 500. And that memories is always in here. So when I had opportunity 2009, okay, let's go to the Indianapolis. And that's the time I gone back to the Indy, of course, because I visited there for the Formula One, but the first time for the Indy 500 qualifying day, bump day actually. And then I was standing on the infield inside of the turn one, the car screaming over 220 miles per hour. That speed, it really didn't surprise me because if you go to the Monza, you can create in similar speed. But what really surprised me was the cars get into the corner that speed. So the driver kept on the foot and throttle. And then so because of the infield, and then banking too, you can feel the cars coming towards you, and then you can see the cockpit. Now by the apex, the driver actually starting to sliding off a little bit and then correcting, still kept on the throttle, and then cars beautifully widening and emerging on the exit sidewall, the safer barrier, for the concrete wall, where is relatively fast still, 215, 10 miles per hour ish. And that was just unbelievable experience. That was like a shocking moment, similar to that age of 10 I had it in Suzuka, very similar. So then I immediately wanted to do it. It kind of scary to look at it, but I really interested. That was the first time, and then spoke to the team owners, and eventually, so the following year, 2010, Jamie Vassar gave me a fantastic opportunity to competing in IndyCar series. That's how I started.
And you mentioned Indy. I know one of your first times, I believe it was your first time there in 2012 at Indy.
Yeah.
One of my most vivid memories is watching you kind of just gun it in there, under Mario Franchitti. Obviously, it didn't work out, but just And what were your emotions like, at least in that moment, knowing, man, it didn't work out,
Well, I was obviously down big time. It is shocking, hugely, but 2012 Indy 500 it was obviously a very, very special moment for me. It's important moment. Now, like you said, yes, it's a failed. I came out in the wrong direction, on turn one, but I was all day long. I was competing in two Ganassi cars, the Dario and Dixie, and I knew from turn two exit to turn three, I didn't have enough speed because of the wind direction from turn one to turn three. So the tailwind on the turn two made it so difficult to follow. And because of the tailwind on the back straight, on the relative, it becomes shorter and it's very difficult to get the slipstream. Anyways, I was never able to overtake them into the turn three, but I was actually racing very hard into the turn one for the past 100 laps. So when I getting to the opportunity lap 198, so I slide into inside of Dixon, and who was a second right about he was overtaking to Daria. So he obviously caught him surprised, but I was pulled perfectly at that time. So follow the Daria, and then the next lap, so final lap, white flag 199. So now because Dario basically leading the race, who punching on airs and lots of drag, when you lead. Now, of course, it was the end of the steam, so 30 laps all tires, so both sliding up. It's very difficult to follow on the flat, actually, so it was impossible. But turn four, I was able to 99% flat. So I knew there was crossing speed, it was so great. I got on the toe, and the crossing speed was great. And I knew into the turn one, I was able to go level side by side. You could see it instantly. You could see it. So I pulled a move, but then of course Dario immediately react and defend, which is nothing wrong, but obviously tight. So then my number one priority at that time was just basically don't hit the Dario. Because if I hit him and then he was on the fence and I won the race, that's really bad. For me, it's not a race or sport. So I tried to avoid him, avoid him, and then eventually I realized, shoot, I'm on the white line already. So the the fans who don't know that specific moment has to explain that a little bit, because back in 2012, virtually no one using the truck underneath of the white line. You could, but just because no one goes, it's just kind of dirty too. And as soon as you touch on the white line, it's just you can feel this loss of the grip. So everyone basically sort of avoid white line in racing white line. And this until the Carlos Munoz arrived and he become cut the white line every. And then since then, everyone started. But anyway, so that time the car was already knife edge, and Ray Holker was very fast, but was completely knife edge. And then I'm cranking onto the rear bar because obviously preventing understeer for the turn four. But then turn one went to get to this shallow entry because side by side, I was already dirty part of the racetrack, and then try to avoid the barrier, go down below the white line, hit the white line, and then immediately back of the car starts slides. And then I couldn't do anything. So obviously, after that race, I watched that race a million times. What went wrong? What could I have done, should I have done? But I never regret, because that was my first Indy 500 actually challenging for the winning and competing in two Ganassi's car with the first year of the Ray Hall car. And there's lots of the element that there's a potential you could do the game. But I knew that was a kind of once in life opportunity too. Lots of people believed if you blew that chance, you never had the same situation. I kind of agree, but if you keep challenging it, you will eventually get to your chance again, and that's what I believe. So since then, it was a tough time, but it was a great time with AJ Foyt Racing 2013 to 16, and then of course the Android Autosport. Michael gave me a fantastic opportunity in 2017. So 5 years later, that moment, millions time I knew how to do it, what I need to do it. Now is the time I have to show it. So that was 2017 special moment. But back in 2012, I have no regret, but I was down hugely. I was disappointed. I feel so sorry for the boys and teams, and that was just a difficult time, but it's very, very important time.
Of course, you mentioned 2017, you got that redemption per se. Just what do you remember, like looking back on that? Obviously, you have another Indy 500 after that, but specifically that first one, what do you still kind of reflect on as you look back on that year?
I feel just appreciate for everyone who helped me. Of course, my Andretti starting, and all the sponsors and all the fans, and there's family sacrifice in lots of ways, but um I pulled, and I just another dream come true. For me, there was such a special moment, and when I crossed the line, usually race car drivers say, "Oh, thank you, boys, love you, boys," and it was fantastic car, thank you, great pit stop. It's just a thank you because just naturally that's what you feel. So I tried to thanking to the boys and flip my the radio button, but neither of the English or Japanese or any language come out of my mouth. I just couldn't. I couldn't speak, and then all I did was just a shouting, and a bit huge. I mean, it's like, and I realize now, if you think about it, that memory, it's just a newborn baby with a screaming, because that's the only things they can. And I was similar. So when the human being on the situation is such a special moment, I just realized I think people just scream. So that's what I did. But one thing I was kind of embarrassed was I forgot to flip back to my radio button. So obviously that scream was going to the broadcast. It wasn't intended to at all, but it was on. But that was a special moment. So obviously I was just over the moons and just felt like unbelievable appreciation. So I just never forget. And then when I back to the victory circle, all the boys are just like, yeah, the big time. And in fact, on the pit lane when I went to, there was five boys jump out from the pit wall who are all AJ Foyt. Just the previous years, and a high touch with all the boys. And then, and actually on the victory circle, AJ Foyt himself came to the congrats on me. That was again, it's just such a heartwarming the moment. As you can imagine, AJ nowadays become a lot softer and round, but AJ become, usually it's very, very hard, right? But to him to come to somebody else for the another team to become the celebrating on the victory circle is very rare. But I believe we had a special feeling with AJ for his family. So that was a moment. And then of course all the boys in 26 boys in 26 cars with my Grand Riches, and that was an amazing feeling. And then all over 300,000 people buzz around the voice. Just a little bit clockwise and counter clock on the time. So when I crossed the line, of course I was shouting. But then after shout, and I realized, oh shit, let's flip back the radio button. And then the radio comes in, congrats on Taku, etc. But at the same time, I could hear the voice from the fans. Usually in a race car, 200 miles per hour with a lot of wind, the engine screaming, you'd never be able to hear the voice. But that moment, I could hear the Indianapolis voice. And now it was just a special moment.
Yeah, and you mentioned I was also at that in the stands screaming, so that was a great moment.
Yes.
But final question for me, just IndyCar fans know your motto as "No attack, no chance." I think you kind of talked about it a little bit, but where did that come from, and what does that motto mean to you?
It means a lot. It's actually come from the bicycle racing. A lot of it in the peloton, for example, the ace rider is basically protected by a teammate, and that's become the you need the toe slipstream effect. But when you go to the mountain, basically you become individual because speed is so low. Now it's the peloton. From the peloton you attack, and then you make a chance. Now, of course, if you're by individual, then you have a massive risk. The big group will eventually catch you up before the checkout or goal line. But sometimes it's success, and then they become a hero. So basically, for me, it's a no attack, no chance become for that kind of attack from the bicycle time. So, but then I applied it. I not really applied it. It just as a result, it becomes that motto, because I feel the no attack, no chance is you can apply anything for everyday things, and no matter if it's a sport, business, anything. It's just you have to try it, right? So the chances are all over the place, but those chances no guarantee to come to you when you need it, the timing and etc. But if you keep challenging it, then you get the one step across, and then eventually you can grab yourself. So that's the no attack, no chance motto. It's not like close the eye and go. That's completely opposite. So you have a statistically calculate and all the things. So even I sometimes overshoot and failed a lot of accidents in my life, but that's because I believe there is a chance. And if I attack, sometimes you have to learn the guys that's become 50% of the chance of the incident. But if you pulled perfectly, that's become just a fantastic feeling. And you get the chance by yourself because you attacked. So that's a no attack, no chance motto. So when I built here the bicycle club team, when I went to the Suzuka Racing School, that was another story that is very tough to actually enter. But I was eventually went to, and then British Formula 3, Formula 1 days, IndyCar, and then become Indy 500 winner, not just once, but twice with Reho. That's another story too. This is such a special, moment, 2020 on the pandemic, but the team worked so hard and so close together. So I was so appreciative with Bobby and Mike Lanning and specific that bring me back to the team after 2012. After, then I went to 2018 with the Reho. The first year was disaster in terms of super speedway, but 2019 we got on the podium, not podium, but third in the Indy 500. But so you slowly but surely climbing up the ladder, and the team become a super speedway specialist by end of 2020. So I have to be appreciated. But all the things because of where we attack and then grab the chance ourselves. So that's kind of my entire life as well as my race career.
Well, Takuma, you're an inspiration to a lot of people, and I appreciate you taking all the time. And hopefully we'll see you in a race car at Indy next year as well. But thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, David. Great to talk to you.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 48 with Takuma Sato. Did you guys know Sato competed on bicycles before his motorsports career started to take off? I mean, if you did, kudos to you, because that was completely new information to me. I mean, it's just super cool to hear driver stories and what helped mold them into the people/competitors that they are today. Now, another takeaway I had was the meaning behind his motto, no attack, no chance. It's a term we've heard a lot throughout his career in IndyCar racing. Hopefully that career continues, by the way. Takuma's mindset is inspiring to anyone, and it's so applicable to any situation in life. Even if you fail, whatever that is, if you keep attacking and growing from your mistakes, you will succeed. You just have to attack on those chances that come up. Well, I appreciate you guys for watching our interview with Takuma Sato. Make sure to like this video, leave your comment below, and subscribe. Yeah, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss what's coming up next. You can follow this podcast on X and Instagram at Behind Catch. Thanks again for watching, you guys, and I'll catch you later.